Okay, today's video is day 7. We are factoring trinomials of type ax1 plus bx plus c. So basically that number of a is going to be bigger than 1. So like if you look at the first example, it's 3n squared minus 7n minus 6. So when we factor trinomials of this type, we're still doing the same process. We just have to account for a little bit more because this number right here is bigger than 1. So I want to make an example up over here to the side. And let's just work with like 2x plus 4 times x minus 3. So let's multiply that out. So I'm going to do 2x times x is 2x squared. I'm going to do 2x times negative 3, that's negative 6x. 4 times x is just 4x, and then 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. And then combine your terms. So there's 2x squared. That would be minus 2x minus 12. So what I want you to see is it's not as simple as just looking at these last two numbers and saying that they multiply up to the negative 12 and add to the negative 2. Now, they certainly multiply up to the negative 12. That's not the issue. The issue is this middle term. So 4 plus negative 3 is 1. And the reason they don't just add up to the middle term is because I have this number in front of x. So what I need to look at are the middle two terms added together to create the last part. So I'm looking at these two terms added together to get what I need. And so I am going to constantly have to check. Those two came from multiplying the two outer terms with the two inner terms. Okay, because I've got 2 times negative 3 gave me the negative 6x, 4 times x gave me the 4. So I'm going to test out or check that those two create the middle term of my trinomial. Okay, so let's start with number 1. We are factoring this trinomial. So I like to set up my parentheses. And so I'm still going to start with factors of 6, and I'll pick the negative up later. So 1 times 6, 2 times 3. And then I also need to account for factors of 3. So that's just 1 times 3. All right, so I know it has to be 1 and 3. So I'm going to start by just putting n times 3n. Okay, or I can put the 3n first. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to start at the bottom of my list as just a starting point. So I'm going to test out, is it 2, could I put a 2 and could I put a 3 there and see? So let me just demonstrate on this first one. If I were to multiply this all out, I would have 3n squared. Let's just say they're positive. I would have 3n squared plus 3n minus 6n plus 6. And so then when I go to add, these two are going to add a, oh, I guess I switched to an x. That should be an n. These are going to add to a negative 3n plus 6. So I can make this last number say negative 6 by fixing some negatives. I already know it's going to say 3. So I'm focused on these two. And those two are created by testing out the two outer multiplied and the two inner. Okay, so I'm going to take this away. And so I'm going to take away, let me go back, I didn't mean to take all that away. So I'm going to have n and 3n. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to multiply the two outer and the two inner. And again, start positive. So 3n, 2 and 3 is 6n. Can they add or subtract to my middle number, negative 7? Well, this is going to add up to 9 or subtract to 3. Okay, so what that means is 2 and 3 are most likely in the wrong spot. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take that away, and I am going to switch where 2 and 3 are located. And so I'm going to put 3 here and 2 here, and then I'm going to recheck the two outer multiplied and the two inner. So n and 2 is 2n. 3 times 3 is 9. Now I can make that say negative 7. And the way I want to do that is if I'm going, one of them has to be positive, one has to be negative. If I know my answer should be negative, then the bigger number should be negative. If my answer was positive, the bigger number's positive. Okay, so I need to come in here and put in these signs. I want it to be -9 and 2, and that will give me a -7. So the 9 came out of the first set because I'm doing -3 and 3. The 2 is here. And then on this first one, let's re-multiply to check the whole thing. So actually I'm going to take this away. We don't need that or that. Gosh, I'm taking away too much. I do want these parentheses though. So let's just recheck the whole thing and just make sure. So I'm going to multiply n times 3n squared. So I did this times this. I'm going to do that times that. So that's going to be plus 2n. These two multiplied is -9n, and then these two multiplied is -6. So then I have 3n squared minus 7n minus 6. And see how that matches my problem. So it's important that I check the 2 inner and the 2 outer multiplied in order to see if I got the right answer. Okay, so let's take these off. I'm going to go ahead and circle this, put a box around it, and so that is my factored answer. Okay, so there's a lot more guessing and checking involved than before, but you just want to make sure you kind of keep track of your, trial and error. Okay, number 2, I'm going to start with parentheses. So I need factors of 3, so only one set, 1 and 3. 20 has several, so 1 times 20, I always start with 1, then try 2, then try 3, and so forth. 2 times 10, 3 won't work, but 4 will, 4 and 5. Okay, I am going to start at the bottom of my list. So 4 and 5 I'm going to begin with. Of course, I only have 1 and 3. So I'm just going to try to do 4x and 5x. And then I'm just going to go with 1 and 3. And then I need to test out the 2 inner multiplied plus the 2 outer multiplied. Do I get -17? So 4 times 3 is 12x. 1 and 5 is 5x. Okay, so when I add that, I get +17. I wanted to say negative. So if I make them both negative, -12 plus -5 gives me -17. So if I fit my negatives in here, let's double check. Do I still get +3 at the end? And so if I test -1 times -3, yeah, I get +3. Okay, so my answer is, let me fix my parenthesis here. So my answer is the factors of 4x minus 1 times 5x minus 3. Now, if that would not have worked, I would have switched the 1 and the 3, okay, but it turned out to be okay right there. Okay, well, you guys try number 3, and if you feel like you're ready to try a few, just pause the video, try 3 and 4, and come back, okay, but at a minimum, pause and try number 3. Okay, if you're back to the video, 1 and 3, 1 and 11, so there's only 2 sets. So I'm going to start with W and 11W, and then 1 and 3, and then I'm going to check. These two multiplied plus these two multiplied, plus or minus, do I get -14? 3W and 11W. So 11 and 3 adds to 14. If I want it to be negative, let's try negative and negative. So negative and negative, and then I also want to double check, is this okay at the end? Negative times negative, I get positive. All right, so that is my solution, or my factored answer. Now, you could also always just multiply back out and check if you want, okay? But you don't necessarily have to do that on every single one. Okay, here's number 4. If you want to pause and try 4, please do that. Okay, factors. So 1 times 7, 1 times 3. Okay, so not a lot of options here. So I have V, 3V, and then let's do 1 and 7. And then we're going to test out the inner and the outer. So V times 7 is 7V, 1 and 3 is 3V. Okay, this is a similar setup to the last two. I get it to add to a 10, but I want negative. So let's tack on a negative for both. So stick your negative in there, and let's make sure that we did not mess up the 7 at the end. So -1 and -7, okay, that's positive. So that works out great. All right, let's circle our answer. V minus 1 times 3V minus 7. Okay, let's keep going. I want you guys to pause and try the next couple on your own. Okay, so try 5 and 6 and then come on back. All right, 21. We have 1 times 21, 3 times 7. And for 2, we have 1 times 2. So I like to start at the bottom of my list. So I'm going to try 1Q and 2Q. And then I'm going to go with 3 and 7 and see what we get. All right, 7 times Q is 7Q. 3 and 2 is 6. So can I get that to add or subtract to 11? So I get 13 or 1. All right, so that isn't going to work. Let's get rid of that. I'm going to swap the 7 and the 3. And let's try to put the 7 first and the 3 second. And then check the inner and outer. So that would be 3Q. 7 and 2 is 14. Okay, I have 14 minus 3 is 11. So let's make it say negative 11. So if I make the bigger number negative and the smaller number positive, and you can try that on your calculator. If you're not sure, you can say, is it 3 plus negative 14, or is it negative 3 plus 14? And you can test it out. So I am going to put the negative on the 7, the positive on the 3, and then I always check. I need a negative 21 as my last term. So negative 7 times 3 is negative 21. All right, so there we go. That is our factored answer. Okay, number 6. All right. So factors of 8. 1 times 8, 2 times 4. Factors of 10. 1 and 10, and 2 and 5. So let's start at the bottom of both lists. Okay, so I'm going to try 2W and 5W, and then I'm going to try 2 and 4. And then I am going to test out the outer and the inner. So 2 and 4 is 8W. 2 times 5 is 10. All right, this is going to add to 18, or 10 minus 8 is 2, and I need an 11. Okay, so that means I'm going to switch the spots. Okay, so I'm going to put the 4 first and the 2 second. Okay, so let's put the 4 first, the 2 second. Now let's remultiply. 2 times 2 gives me 4W. 4 and 5 is 20. Okay, so that is not working either. That's going to be 24 or 20. So what that means is I'm going to move on and try 1 and 8. Okay, so let's take out 4 and 2. And so I'm going to try 1 and 8 and see what happens. So I've got 2 times 8 is 16W. 1 and 5 is 5. Okay, 16 minus 5 is 11. So if I want the 11 positive, make the bigger number positive, the smaller negative. So the 16 comes from here, 8 and 2, the 5 here. Now, do I get negative 8 at the end? So negative 1 and 8, yeah, I've got negative 8. So there is my solution. And so go ahead and circle it or box it. Okay, I'm going to stop and come back to a second video for the last 3. So if you want to try the last 3, you can. And then when you come back, we'll set those up.